Hello friends, my name is Vinay and as we have promised, I am here with you for you to discuss argument writing. Okay, so we all know that when it comes to CAPF exam paper 2, argument writing is very important part. It is for 20 marks and we have to write two arguments, both compulsory, and let me belong to any medium, let it be Hindi or English, I have to write argument writing in English. Only essay is a part which I can write in Hindi. Otherwise, I have to write it in English. Everything, let it be argument, report, précis, comprehension, everything, right? So now there are many students who actually don't understand the format of argument writing. So in brief, we'll be talking about that stuff first. What needs to be the do's and don'ts of argument writing, and then I'll be discussing an actual topic, a very simple topic for today because it is the first topic that I'm going to discuss. Okay, so the first thing is this, that see, I would recommend you to watch this lecture which has been given by Vinay sir, uploaded on Avks YouTube channel regarding the format of argument writing. In that lecture, he has clearly mentioned that what needs to be do's and don'ts of argument writing. So if you haven't seen it, just go through it and then look at this video. And otherwise too, I am going to discuss this stuff in brief. Like, first thing is that when it comes to argument writing, you need to understand that, okay, the basic thing we know that we have to write in favor and in against points, right? But before that, a brief introduction is expected. Now that introduction need not to be like, bigger introduction of a big paragraph like essay. It can be of 2-3 lines, but it needs to be there. Because whenever we start topic, whenever we start debating about the topic, we need to give it a start, like, what is the topic about, why it was in recent news, why it is important, and something like that. So you can mention that in 3-4 lines, 2-3 lines, then you can actually start writing for or favor and against, right, points. Now at the same time, conclusion in argument writing is also important, and in conclusion you actually can take one side. Yes, it is allowed. You can take one side and you can just mention that, okay, even though the things are, negative things are like that, but like, this thing is something which we need to take care, or this is something which we if we can do it, it can make a world a better place, right? So yes, I mean, you can agree with some opinion, that's fine. See, whatever I speak here, whatever I give you guidelines, whatever theoretical I discuss, it does not make sense unless we actually discuss the argument writing, right? So what we can do here in today's lecture, that we will actually discuss the argument writing topic. Now see, argument writing, we all know, we actually every day we actually have lots of debates. Let it be our family members, let it be our friends, or we have some debates on social media. We keep on watching some debates on TV. You must have seen all those debates happening on TV where most of them are actually useless fellows and they keep on blabbering anything, right? So that is not something we actually do here. We are going to be officers, so what is expected from us is that we write point wise, and it needs to be precise and to the point. Now see, one last thing I will tell you, and then I'll start with the topic directly. Always try to give examples in the support of your argument. So what you are doing, you are arguing here, okay, this is right, no, this is wrong, but always try to give example to support your argument. Now when we talk about examples, it can be data, it can be some case study, it can be example of NGO doing something, it can be some recent event in current affairs, it can be example of from history which is acceptable, it can be a global example, it can be Supreme Court or High Court judgment, it can be anything, right? But it needs to be there to prove your point. And if you can use constitutional articles to prove your point, or some laws if you know about them, right? So all this stuff is important. Some data, survey report or something like that you can mention there, because your examples or the data that you support the argument with actually helps you to get more marks. Now many students ask this question, how many arguments I should write on one side and on the other side. So see, people say 5 arguments, five for, 5 against, which is fine. But again, we need to consider the time constraint, right? So if your writing speed is good and if you know the topic and you have lots of points in your mind, and if you start writing in speed, and if you can write 5 points on both the sides and introduction and conclusion, you are doing very well. You will be getting, like, if everything is on place, you can get 10 plus marks in argument. But many times time factor we have to consider. We have to like finish argument writing within say 35 minutes, and in 35 minutes we have to write 2 arguments. In one argument we have to write 2 sides plus intro plus conclusion. We have to think about it. We have to work on the what needs to be my points, and we have to think about the examples. So it is very difficult to write 5 points, but you need to try to write 5 points. So if you start actually writing arguments right now, so for example, even if you are attending this lecture and if I am explaining the topic and every stuff and content is there in front of you, still I would like you to after you finish this lecture, say after a day or day after tomorrow, so, take this topic and start writing by your own, because then and then only you will be able to understand what actually problems you face while you write argument. Many students actually don't know or don't want to know that what problems actually come when you write. You start writing and then you will realize that there is a lot of scope for improvement. Okay, so give examples, and as I was telling you that there is this time constraint, so at least 4 points on both sides are important. In worst case, you can go for 3 points. Sometimes it might happen that you have 3 points in case of favor, but 4 points in case of against. Again, that is fine. You don't have to worry about ki दोनों साइड में सेम पॉइंट्स आने चाहिए. It's fine. So whatever you know, just write that down. Okay, but support it with examples. It will help you a lot. Okay, so let's discuss today's topic. It's a simple topic, and the topic is hydrogen fuel. The use of hydrogen fuel. Okay, so that is the simple topic of today's. That do we need like what about the hydrogen fuel stuff? Okay, so can we use hydrogen fuel or not? So that is today's topic. Okay. So if we talk about the 4 points, then we all know that they don't emit greenhouse gases. Now it's very simple thing. You might have already heard, like see, before starting the favor points, how can we write the introduction for argument? We can just mention, like recently you might have seen that the road transport minister is already using the hydrogen fuel car, right? You might have heard about it. And he has already declared that in future we are actually planning to bring this hydrogen fuel model in India. Right now actually we are in this electrical zone, but in future we are planning to bring a hydrogen fuel, right? So we can just mention something like that this thing was in current affairs, and considering the today's scenario of pollution, we need to think about alternative source of energy. Or you can write that considering the price rise of fossil fuels, we need to consider the alternative source of energy. So hydrogen fuel is one such fuel, but there are some pros and cons. So let's talk about them, and then you can start writing about the favor points. So what is the first point? Now these are the very obvious points. They are written in front of you, but see, again I am telling you, in exam you will be having only a topic and not these points, and nobody can tell you which topic will come in exam. So what you need to do is, you need to be ready for any of the topics. So you need to develop the skill to brainstorm, to bring the points and support them with examples. Now see what is written here. Hydrogen fuel cells vehicles do not emit greenhouse gases. So what you are doing actually here, now lots of lecture I'll be taking to discuss various argument writing topics, but that is not important. What is important is that you understand the framework behind those points. Say for example, if we are talking about hydrogen fuel, the first point, what the first point is doing, it is saying that it does not emit greenhouse gases. That means they are trying to link hydrogen fuel with the environmental issue, which is a very serious issue nowadays. So we keep on talking about climate change. So what I am doing is, so for example, debate मैं कर रहा हूँ and I want to say that hydrogen fuel cells are good. So what I'll do, first I'll say, अरे do you know this, that it will help to reduce climate change, right? Why? Because they do not emit greenhouse gases. So I'll be like, okay, so for climate change it is good thing. Okay, so that is one point in favor. Then what they are saying now, They are giving examples as many countries are opting for energy transition. Clean hydrogen fuel vehicles along with other alternative fuel vehicles can pave the way to sustainable transportation. Now we all know that we use this word sustainable development frequently. So here we can use the word sustainable transportation. Now again, in this statement I have not given any example, but what you can do is you can find some countries where actually they have started using hydrogen fuel on a bulk scale or larger scale. Let that be Norway or Sweden or Denmark. Find about it, think about it and write that example. It will help you a lot. Second is, as these vehicles do not emit greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, they can cut air pollution to great extent. Now you might find these 2 points same, but they are not. The first point is talking about the climate change, the global warming, and the second point is talking about the pollution, right? So it can cut air pollution to a greater extent, right? Now you can give examples like, the condition in, what is the condition in Delhi right now, or you can give the data that recently the data released by I think WHO only, that when they actually listed all the cities in the world based on pollution, then Indian cities, there are total 5 Indian cities which are in first top 10, right? So you can write this example and you can say that okay, in such scenario it is high time that we should think for alternative fuels and hydrogen fuel cell will show us the light. Then comes the third point, hydrogen vehicles are much quieter than fossil fuels based vehicles, so they can reduce noise pollution too. Again you are linking the use of hydrogen vehicles to the third part, that is noise pollution, because we all know what is the scenario today in metro cities. This is a very big problem of honking and the noise made by the vehicles, so we can reduce noise pollution too. Now this is one point. Okay, what can be the next thing? We all know this point, the prices of fossil fuels are increasing continuously, and we all know that what kind of problems we are facing nowadays. So if more hydrogen vehicles come into the market, the price of fossil fuels may reduce. Already we are thinking of alternative vehicles, then we can think that the price of fossil fuels may reduce, or even if they don't, but people will have some alternative source of energy, right? And then what is the last point? Hydrogen vehicles have fast charging times when compared to electrical vehicles. Now if you have some data to support this statement, please use that. If you have some data to support this statement, like the average time to charge a vehicle with hydrogen fuel cell is this and with electrical vehicle is this, so again it is helpful for people. Now this one thing is not mentioned here, which you can mention, you might have thought about it already, the rate, the price of hydrogen fuel cells, which is not mentioned by me, but you can mention it, you can find about it. See, in these lectures I am not going to give you every data ready made. I just want to give you clue. That's why I have not added examples, because what happens sometimes that you read those examples and you just try to memorize them. I want you to find about them. That's why I just told you that, for example, in this pollution case, air pollution case, you can think about the data raised by WHO. Even I am not sure about the organization, but it was WHO only mostly, and they talked about the pollution index, and Indian 5 cities were in the top 10. So you can write something like that. So find out. I have given you points, you find out the examples and try to write this argument again, much better than what I have dictated you. Okay, empower yourself. Then comes, say for example, against point. If the hydrogen fuel escapes into the air, it can increase global warming. So we are talking about hydrogen fuel, which is like best alternative source of energy. But in case if it escapes to air, then there are chances of global warming. Now again, this point is not very strong, but we have to write something in case of against, so use it. If the production of hydrogen fuel uses fossil fuels, that can be counterproductive. Again, people say that okay, we use electrical vehicles, but electrical vehicles like they are like green vehicles and something like that. But to produce electricity, if we are using coal, then we can't say electrical vehicles are completely green, right? They might be better than use of fossil fuels, they might be cheaper than as compared to fossil fuels, but they are not completely green. In the same way, if tomorrow if we use fossil fuels to produce hydrogen fuel, then what is the use of that, right? So we need to find out renewable energy to produce hydrogen fuel. Then and then only we can say that okay, it's good. Otherwise, it is problematic only. So it comes under against. Hydrogen is inflammable and can cause fires or explosions. So it is not completely safe yet. Actually, we all know that hydrogen is very inflammatory and oxygen supports that inflammation, right? So we need to talk about this point, right? Then the last point is that infrastructure to refill the hydrogen fuel is still in the initial stages. So refilling can become a challenge. Arey bhai, even like if you talk about like today's scenario, even the electrical vehicles, we can say charging stations are not adequate. Their infrastructure is still lacking. So hydrogen fuel is like long distance story. We are a long way to go to make hydrogen fuel. What we can say daily use fuel. So infrastructure is lacking. So things are there. Now here in this case you can add lots of points. We need political will. In country like India, we need lots of research and development to create all these facilities, and again the adaptation is a difficult process, right? So you can write such points. Now this is about hydrogen fuel, the use of hydrogen fuel, favor points we discussed and the against point we discussed, right? So what I want to tell you, when it comes to the conclusion, you can take any of the side and it's completely fine. Just justify it in the conclusion. So what you can write is, if we consider the today's scenario of fossil fuels, not only they are costly, but they are costly to the environment around us too. In such cases, hydrogen fuel, even though they are not compatible right now, but if we spend more money and more expertise on how to make sure that hydrogen fuel actually comes into use, we can definitely make a difference to this world, and it is high time that we think of alternative sources of energy. So at the end of any argument, your intention should be clear that you want to make this world a better place. So talk in that term, finish the conclusion in 2-3 lines, and that is the end of your argument writing. Same way you have to go for the next argument and you have to finish that. Remember, time constraint is very important. But when you try to practice argument writing for the first time, don't worry too much about the timing. Try to fill the content with the examples. Examples can be anything. It can be data, it can be name of organization, it can be Supreme Court or High Court judgment. Okay, so think about this and try to write a better argument. So this was the first topic that we have discussed, that use of hydrogen fuel like as an energy source, we can say so, right? So just try to understand what I have tried to discuss here and try to write this on your own. Like if you are watching this lecture right now, I am not asking you to write down immediately after finishing the lecture, because you already know the point. But say after 2-3 days, try to write that and try to see how many points actually you remembered. And listening to the lecture is one thing, and when you actually take writing in your hand, then you realize okay, how it is difficult to actually try to recollect and try to build the sentence in a proper way. So try to do that. I'll come to you with more number of topics, and we'll be discussing more number of topics regarding argument writing. If you have any doubts, any issue, you can mention in the app and we can work on that. Okay, so this was about first topic of argument writing. Okay, so I'll stop here right now. Thank you.